So yeah, either let Olivia know if that's a problem for you, or if not, we'll be recording and putting that on our YouTube channel. And just to introduce myself, if I haven't met everybody so far, my name's Sharon Smith. I'm Chief Exec of Herefordshire and Worcestershire Chamber of Commerce. Can I also take this opportunity before we start to welcome our two speakers today, who is Gavin, you can give us a wave, Gavin Dubb, EBC Technical Specialist, and Yvonne Tweedle from Jupiter Group, Director of Jupiter Group. So welcome to you both, and thank you, a huge thank you to both of you for sharing your insight with us today on, I'm sure, what will be a very topical situation for all of us as we are kind of still working at home and still partly in offices too. So thank you for that. If anyone's got any questions as we go through the session for either Gavin or Yvonne, if you could put them in the chat, but I'm sure at the end of the presentations we'll have an opportunity maybe to do hand raising as well. But if you could use the chat, that would be really useful, because it's helpful to go through them and capture everybody's thoughts. So before we jump in, I was just thinking a quick update from the Chamber. Over the COVID period, we've probably had about 4,000 conversations with businesses now, and we've really seen a huge amount of challenge and change, as I know you all have experienced in your own businesses. So I was looking back and thinking, crikey, March and April, what were we thinking about and doing then? And actually the early days there was a real focus on cash, obviously a mass move to working from home, huge dip in orders for lots and lots of businesses, and that's still a challenge as we speak now. And obviously understanding of what government support schemes were going to be put in place. And I suppose we felt now that the position has moved and it's generally a lot less reactive. We're finding that more and more businesses have got a more planned approach. We're out of that really initial crucial, you know, flight stage, and conversations are starting to be around flexible working strategies, around possible redundancies, skills challenges, obviously with the end of the furlough scheme. Lots at the moment in the news, as we all know, about local lockdowns, the impact of that on businesses, impact of challenges with test and trace, and the impact of that on businesses. Certainly orders and cash still, and for Brexit for many too. So I think I could have gone on and on with that list really, but I guess these are challenges that you're all facing in your businesses, and definitely on a bigger macro picture. You know, there's a real social versus economic challenge, isn't there? You know, health first, but then we're all very acutely aware of the impact on the economy, both locally, nationally and internationally. So yeah, a big journey still ahead, I think. Many businesses have reacted really quickly, working in different ways, and I think today's focus on remote working and workplace technology is really crucial to that ongoing discussion. So hopefully the insight you'll learn today will help you navigate some of the steps ahead. And I think, yeah, in the meantime, without further ado, I'll hand straight over to Gavin, if I can.
Sure. Morning. Thank you, Sharon.
Okay.
Just start sharing on my screen, so just bear with me 1 second. Just making sure that everybody can see my screen. I'm just hoping everybody's keeping well and keeping safe, and thank you for taking time out throughout the day, especially for the presentation. So one thing about EBC, we're a technology company. We deal with everything from print all the way up to security, all the way to remote management of Microsoft 365, also helping for companies deal with Microsoft Zoom, etc. We've been together, well, we've been established since 1989, so just over 30 years. Privately owned data center. We're a one-stop shop for all managed IT systems. So everything from your printer all the way up to your server infrastructure, all the way up into the cloud. So if we can't do it, I don't think nobody can do it, to be honest with you. So, but it is one we can do it. So it's good. So one thing that's especially coming out through the COVID pandemic, which everybody's kind of been brought to the forefront, is the change. What's changed? Everybody, technology has always been quite flexible in terms of how people work and where they're working, what they're actually doing. Things are now taking more place and more present using, for example, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, working via video, working remotely, using the technology that's currently available in both consumer and as well as the enterprise market as well. So, for example, today we're doing a video presentation, we're doing a screen share. These kind of technologies have been around for 10, 15 years, but it's the pandemic which has now made it come to the forefront for tech companies to take that next leap into the physical, move away from physical and more to the cloud environment, so be more remote. One thing that, especially for be able to have a successful business, especially for a digital transformation moving to the cloud, is utilizing what's available. Microsoft offer a vast amount of tools, Exchange Online, Microsoft Teams, sharing documents online, SharePoint, you name it. So those kind of technologies help anybody. So like Sharon was saying, she was on the beach last week. I'm sure she picked up on her emails while she was there. There you go. So it's those kind of, as long as you've got, we live in a world where it's data connection is the key thing. We cannot walk away, we can't live without our mobile phones or some sort of connection. So everything is built into a little device or a laptop or a PC where you can connect and work remotely and work securely as well, which is one of the key things. And one of the key things from there is having your IT support. So for example, EBC, we work very closely with Jupiter, especially during the pandemic time as well, is keeping the business going. So always being able to remote onto a server or onto a user's environment to actually address any issues, what's coming through, and being more flexible within our approach. And Jupiter as well, for example, or other companies have been more flexible how they are approaching the digital transformation. Normally, traditionally was the standard, I need everything to be in a building, in a cabinet, and that's what we're going to do. But that kind of element is now moving away. The reliance of actually having on-prem or an office as such, especially through the pandemic, has, I would say, pushed the plan for companies 5 years ahead already, because it's the flexible approach what people need to do, especially if people on furlough or if you need to manage the accounts, and the flexibility of costings as well. That's one of the big things, especially for businesses, is with cloud environments, you are able to scale up, scale down with your IT infrastructure. So more employees you have, more cost it's going to be. Less employees you have, less cost it's going to be. So that's kind of one key area that cloud technology gives you, that flexibility, that digital transformation, moving to the next step. One of the things is especially planning your IT strategies, kind of moving to that digital transformation. It originally, when 6 months ago COVID came out, there was a mass panic to move towards cloud technology for companies who were not already there. But that's happened, and now it's a case of trying to plan for the future correctly, working out how the business is going to look 5 years from now. Always have an idea of where the business is going to be, but how IT is going to bring it out. IT is one of those industries where it pushes the company to move further through technology, move through and become more flexible, move through and become more usable, especially for the end user. The more usability you have for the end user or the company itself, the more profitable the business is going to be. So the less issues people have, the less downtime, more people can work. So it's a case of being flexible with your approach, understanding what your employee requirements are, understand what the business requirements are, and how you can have a plan, a robust 5-year plan, 10-year plan, and how technology is actually going to take you there. So that's kind of one of the key things. One of the other areas looking behind this is, yes, cost. Money makes the world go round, as they always say. So it's kind of how you're going to approach the costing of this kind of technology. like I said earlier, one of the flexibility of cloud is scale up, scale down, the pay monthly model per user per month. That's one of the key things that are pushing the drivers to moving, well, for industries moving more and more to cloud technology and away from the physical kit on-prem, because it's not just the cost of things, but it's also the environmental impact. And that's kind of one of the highlights that came through COVID as well. When I remember people saying to me, oh, I can hear the birds tweeting now. I can hear it because nature's just come back. So you're reducing your carbon footprint within your on-premises. You're reducing the electricity consumption, air conditioning units, office space, for example. Those are costs which moving to the cloud will reduce. So it's an area to think about as well. But it's all good and well moving straight to the cloud, but one of the biggest things that always a big factor behind it is communication. So that's kind of like your broadband, your telephony, your mobile phone data, and how people interact with those kind of areas. So one of the biggest things that you kind of need to factor is how many users, for example, are going to be working within an office or without an office, how they can connect. Do they need 4G data? Do they need 3G data? What kind of devices are they using which the data needs to be used? Within on-premises, how many network lines do you need, like, for example, broadband lines, internet lines coming within to the building to give you the flexibility in terms of the cloud? So for ideally, you don't want everything going down one pipe. Otherwise, for example, like a sink, everything's going down one pipe. If it's going to overflow, it overflows because it can't push all the water out. So, but with internet-wise, you kind of split this off. You'd have one for example, your normal core information like Word, Excel, Outlook, all that kind of traffic coming through there. Then all the way over to your standard internet traffic. So you have like a bit of a smaller line. So if somebody wants to be on LinkedIn or go onto YouTube, Google, whatever, it's segmenting the network off. So maximum uptime, less jag, less data loss. So that's kind of utilizing the connectivity which is out and what is coming out. For example, the use of 5G, which is going through mass rollout through the UK. More fiber is going through within rural areas. That kind of connectivity is key especially for everybody working from home. I'm sure when everybody is at home, everybody's struggling with the internet. Kids are at home, they want to go play Xbox, PlayStation, whatnot. It's how you manage that traffic, and that's, for example, EBC. We can help you design a network environment, even from home or outside of home or within the business, where we can use our skill sets to design how traffic will flow correctly to the different areas of your business. For example, Office 365, Zoom meetings, on-premise information, SharePoint, etc. One of the other things is now you have to look at the physical hardware aspect. It's the right device. Well, what's the right device for a user? Does a user need a PC? Are they happy with a PC? Do they need a laptop? What kind of laptop? Do they just need a tablet, for example, Microsoft Surface or Apple iPads, etc.? All those kind of elements need to be kind of factored in how people will work. When your traditional office is always, here's a monitor, here's a screen, and if you're lucky, you've always got a laptop. That's always kind of one of the perk things. But moving forward is, how do you cost what hardware, what is actually required, what's actually needed for those users? Do they need just a normal tablet just because they're just working on email? Or if they're doing something a bit more complex, do they need something which is a higher grade laptop, a faster laptop? Do they need something else? Those kind of elements kind of need to be thought through when going towards a cloud environment and designing it. And also the longevity of that device, because you don't want to be buying a device for 1 year, then throwing it away. The idea is you want to buy the hardware and take it through its complete lifespan, so can be 4 to 5 years, depending on the hardware itself. So those kind of elements need to be thought through, how people work. Do they need just a very basic laptop, which gives them, for example, the chamber, we set an environment which they're using remote desktop. into the environment. Can we get away with just saying, can you just use your normal personal laptop, etc., but we'll give you an antivirus? So it's kind of having a look at what devices and what ways the business can reduce costs, but also improve productivity. That's how it's thinking future. The way technology has developed, like for example, today Apple are going to make the announcement of the new iPhone, the new iPads, etc., etc. How is that technology going to be fitting in with the modern workplace? How we will work, what we're going to do? Is there a need for it? Is there not a need for it? Can we just hold off and not buy that kit and wait 3 years and get the next one? But one thing I always recommend, especially if you're looking towards going towards laptops and hardware, is yes, great, you always get the standard 1 year manufacturer guarantee, but always buy the extended. For example, with Dell, it's the Pro Business Support. That will give you next day mission critical if there's something going wrong with a laptop. They'll come out, replace the parts, and away you go, up and running. So it's thinking about those little areas that kind of get missed and people don't really think about it. It's kind of a key area, because the last thing you want to do is be stuck somewhere and your laptop's not working when you've got a critical meeting, and how are you going to do it? With that, it's also looking at the flexibility of telephony. So one thing that you can look is looking at, do you need a desk phone? Not really. Nowadays, you can move everything over to mobile phones, so you can get soft apps for your telephony system, which is hosted by the cloud. For example, Microsoft Teams direct calling, as well as using Swix. Swix is our telephony solution, where within our data center, we will host a telephony solution there, then push out a soft phone app for a mobile phone on an iPhone, on an Android, or on a laptop. So it's way being flexible to be able to communicate through the normal traditional business telephony, but via digital transformation, by having it remote, reducing the on-prem, putting it in for example, in our data center where the uptime is 99.9%. So that's one less, I would say, is one less thing to worry about if the telephony's moved away, and it's easier to manage it on your mobile phone. So the days of like SMEs hosting the software, etc., it's changed. So nowadays, for example, ourselves, we offer, as well as Microsoft, Amazon, Rackspace, everybody else is offering different types of services for different kind of requirements. You now have software as a service. For example, as a business, you may have web access to Sage. Sage is that's classed as a software as a service, because you're accessing it on their platform, but via a login. But then you're moving towards more of a platform as a service. What kind of designs you need, how things will be working, infrastructure as a service. Everything is moving towards as a service model, where you are paying for what you need, not paying for something that you may need, but it's going to last you 5 years, where you're paying for a service where you're not having to worry about what's going on in the background. That's where, for example, EBC comes in. We will design and build the infrastructure behind it and maintain it and monitor it and make sure everything's okay. Everything's up, everything's working, employees are able to work on it. You can scale it up and say we've had more employees come back from furlough, so we need to increase the server infrastructure. Okay, that's fine. Then we'll say that, God forbid there isn't, there's another lockdown coming on, we need to reduce our service because everybody's now being furloughed. So that flexibility in terms of the costing helps as a pay-as-you-go model. So it helps the remote working, it's easier to work, maintaining it, it's reducing the headache that's on the on-prem and the small business, what they have to do. It's now relying in with the large tech companies as well as ourselves, which will manage, update, monitor, make sure their systems are up and running. And there's no upfront investment costs. So you don't have to worry about, I need to have X amount of capital expenditure. Well, no, it's a service. It's probably the best way to describe it is back in the days where you had pay-as-you-go mobiles, you pay for what you use. So it's as simple as that kind of way of model. So the changing role of IT, IT has now changed. IT is now, I would say it's now one of the forefronts of a business, especially way they're moving forward or what they're doing and how they're thinking. It's IT. I remember, to be honest, I remember going back, 10, 15 years ago, IT was always a bit of an afterthought. But now it's kind of, how do we need our IT to work? We need this, we need that. So that's, IT now conducts the full risk assessment, how the business is going to work. Can this work with what's available there already? And it's how to piece that jigsaw together to make sure everything's working. I always kind of explain it, IT, in terms of like a car, like an engine. So every year you have to get an MOT, every year you have to get a service, you have to insure it, etc. But if the car's working and everything's working fine, then everybody's happy. But if something's going wrong, it's up to the IT professional to go in to work out where it's going wrong and replacing the parts and changing what's needed, making the recommendation and pushing the business forward. Because as a business, you want maximum money out of the product that you got. So it's kind of managing what's available. IT remote. I remember I've always said that I just need a laptop and an internet and I can work anywhere. So it's kind of, IT guys have always been managed to work anywhere along the remote infrastructure, help who is required, the fact that communication, soft phones, instant messaging via Microsoft Teams, these kind of things help keep everybody together as a business, even though everybody's working remote. And liaising with the third parties, make sure that they have strategies and plans, make sure everything's working forward, pushing that boundaries forward. But on the other side of this, yeah, it's great, but you always have to worry about the security aspect of keeping things secure. We live in a world where digital transformation is great, but things we see on the news that there's people's iPhones have been hacked, etc., data get missing, etc. One of the biggest ones was probably say TalkTalk, where people's accounts were hacked, the database was hacked and information leaked within the dark web. But to mitigate those kind of areas, to send email communication should be going by encrypted information. So, but for things, for example, Microsoft ATP, Kaspersky Cloud, these kind of things help reduce the issues of things getting lost in transit or people using social engineering to hack or whatever. And also using things like multi-factor authentication. This kind of, for example, Microsoft Office 365, this kind of comes standard with Office 365. So you have to use a token to access your email, your Teams, etc., etc. If it's an unknown device or it's an unplaced recognized area, you can set conditional access areas that that device or that area can be locked out. So, for example, if all of a sudden you're getting locked, somebody's trying to access your email from Asia, that can be flagged up, but you will not allow access into that person's email because it's secure. Those kind of areas are kind of key. Cybersecurity is one of those areas that I admit it, that people do get a bit complacent, and it's one of those areas that should be fought in the forefront, and it should be a risk assessment that every employee is adhering to, say in terms of what they're using the work machines for, when they're accessing it, if they've got an email coming through and they're not sure who's it from, ask IT just to verify the transit routes on it, because everything has a log behind it, so you know what's going on. Keeping laptops up to date, putting the latest Windows patches, Apple patches, application, Kaspersky, Sophos, antivirus, all these kind of things are the essentials to keep things secure. So it's kind of, and also I would say one thing, keeping passwords, use a password safe. If you're in a business where there's only one account which you have generic access, where everybody needs a password to, things like KeyPass, LastPass, these kind of areas keep secure passwords secure, but we'll use two-factor authentication to get into the password vault itself. So imagine it's like a safe. You put information in there that you want to keep secure, and you have to put the PIN code or the key or whatever to get that information out. So that's one of the other areas to kind of think about as well, how we're trying to manage data, what people keeping things secure. The future of digital transformation, it's one of those areas that data analytics, new economy, etc., all these kind of digital transformation are very, very key. Tech disruptors, it's one of those areas where we've all heard the success stories, for example, that's come through the market, through the big Silicon Valley areas, businesses as well. We're moving to an industry, we're moving to a world where you will not be able to get away from anything form of digital. I mean, you could count how many times people look at the phone. It can be just looking at an email, have I got a message, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, etc. All these kind of things are big disruptors to the tech world. It's think different, as the great Steve Jobs probably said, or always remember that, how to think about the world. As you say, the changes associated with the application of technology and data integration, it has moved from physical to digital aspects of all our life and society. That's everywhere that we look. It could be from using digital Freeview TV, Sky, etc., whatever. It's all the way up into the world. For example, a lot of days, for example, technology in cars is, can you unlock your car and lock your car by your mobile phone? Everything in terms of mobile technology is there. It's key, but you've got to keep that technology online clothes shopping. The high street is suffering from these kind of areas because of the ease of just ordering online. A couple of clicks away you go, it's there. Streaming services, Amazon, you can use the Prime service, you can get Amazon Prime Video, you've got Netflix. The jumping to BBC iPlayer, all these kind of streaming technologies have been around for many, many years, but has now flourished, especially in the COVID period. Video communications, we as a family, we have once a week now video quiz nights on a Sunday, so everybody kind of gets together because it's a difficult time. FaceTime, Teams, Stacks, all these kind of things have now pushed that emphasis moving forward. I mean, video communication has been around for many, many years, all the days from Skype, but not many people really used it because it's always a service that has to pay. But since Microsoft, for example, gave 6 months free for Microsoft Teams, that clause of bringing people into that world has actually sped it up even more because the flexibility and uses of those kind of technologies are available. For example, like I say, with collaboration tools with Teams, for example, is able to, you can use everybody externally, you can connect, you can send videos, pictures, you can use sharing documents, you name it, GIFs, images, direct calling from it, just from a single app, from a technology which is cloud-based. One good example is Domino's Pizza. I mean, I'll be honest, I've had pizza a few times, especially during the lockdown. They were a company, Domino's moved everything more traditionally to the cloud instead of moved from the on-prem, especially during the COVID period. By keeping more in-house, especially in terms of technology, they increased their costs, well, not their cost, their revenue, because they're not having to run services such as like Just Eat, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, etc., giving their system, dropping their pizzas off. So their digital transformation plan was to move everything more to the cloud, gives them the flexibility, reducing the overheads, reducing the office spaces, etc. And everybody can work at home. I mean, I like pizza. I'm not sure about everybody else who does, but everything increased because of the way they saw and said, look, let's go digital. So it's an area where it's worth considering. I mean, as you can see, there's like some of the biggest tech disruptors out there. It's Uber, Facebook, Alibaba, Airbnb. These are the biggest industries in certain areas. Like Uber, they want to take on the taxi world. to be honest, if they succeed, Airbnb, the world's biggest accommodation provider. So it's these kind of areas is looking how breaking the ways that we currently work and making it more digital is thinking different. Is the way that I have always taken technology. Find mistakes. It's all great talking about positive areas of digital transformation, but you also have to worry about the mistakes that can happen. Is understanding your plan, make sure you know what's going on. It's like clear strategic direction, lack of communication. Communication can be, does the staff have the right information? Does the staff have the right knowledge? Do they know what's going on? Do they know when it's happening or what's happening? That kind of is very key. I'll give you an example. It's like I gave my mom an iPhone. She just looked at it and looked, that's very nice. But I explained it to her. I explained how it would work. And if I can teach somebody in their 70s how to use an iPhone, I think my communication skills are quite well. So it's looking at that, looking at what the team needs, looking at what each department needs, and understanding how things can work for them, and spending time and working with them. So it's the less mistakes you make, the easier it's going to be to adopting the digital transformation. And that's me speaking. Is there any questions or anything else? I'll just stop sharing my screen at the moment.
Gavin, thank you very much. That was really useful. Can you see the questions in the chat, or do you want me to read them out for you? There's a couple in there at the moment.
Oh, that's a really good stuff. So I think Alison's question. If we take it one by one, what's a really good example of how we've held digital IT infrastructure transformation? I mean, we're working very closely with Jupiter at the moment through their digital transformation. So we're spending a lot of time looking at what the business needs and designing the solution correctly for them. Jupiter is a multinational corporation, is business, so it's designing what's right. We've also helped with Herefordshire and Worcestershire Chamber, designing a solution where, as you can see, everybody's working from home, so they're able to use the internal systems as well. So those are kind of success stories for ourselves. So
don't steal all of Yvonne's presentation. I'm sure she's going to tell us about her story now, which
sure.
would be great. It would be great to have a case study of something that's really worked. And my question there was actually in relation to us. So again, happy to use us as a case study.
Sure.
And obviously we were a good example where we were all in the office before. We did some home working, but not as much as probably not just us, but many companies. It's well publicised now that there'll be a greater demand for flexible working. So I was just wondering how that impacted on the hardware. Like, is there going to be a case of doubling up, or because you talked about reduced costs of the office, which is going to be really important for businesses while they're trying to, maybe purchase different hardware for working at home. Like, are we going to have two sets of hardware, one in the office and one at home, or is it going to be a case of using more hot desking, less office space, and reducing costs that way? I don't know, maybe even Yvonne's example, I should probably have asked my question at the end, would have that. I don't know.
There's a couple of ways to design this kind of solution. Use software as a service. So if, for example, if you've got your own personal laptop at home, you can use published applications where they sit within its own container. It's still very secure, but you're using your home equipment or an iPad or anything like that. But when you're in the office, because you guys use a lot of think clients in an RDS environment, that can stay there, or you reduce those down or hot desk those out if you wanted to. The whole purpose of the thin client is being able to hot desk. Or if you wanted to take the next leap across, is going, actually, we don't want this. We want the flexibility of one laptop per user or one Surface tablet or anything per user. It's thinking about how that technology, the physical kit, is going to work for you. I mean, one of the examples is you walk into a BMW dealership, you want a car, you want a 3-series, but what toys do you want in car? Do you want leather? Do you want air conditioning? Those kind of ideas, kind of thinking how it's going to work from the physical world. So
there's a lot to think about, isn't it? Yeah. And so last question, we've got one there from Catherine. Could this work internationally, like Europe, for example?
So yes, it can. So when you look at terms of technology, the one thing that kind of you have to kind of consider is the GDPR rule, as well as the Cloud Patriot Act. If it's Microsoft and it's GDPR, it has to stay within the European Union and the UK. So it's cloud, it's fine, you can work anywhere. If it's going to be hosted within America, it's just kind of be careful what kind of data that you're going to show, what data you are going to put in there, because Mr. Trump decided to sign a law that allows them access into what they want to, as he does. So it can work internationally, it can work wherever you want. I mean, I sat on the other side of the world on my phone doing work emails when I should be not, and people are getting told off. So that flexibility technology, European, as long as there's data available, you can do. Within European Union, you can use the EU data, so your mobile phone data can go anywhere with you, as long as you signed up. But if you're in the US or anything, you can do that. But it depends on your security restrictions that you're going to put on the system as well. So also thinking, do you want everybody in Spain to access? People who are traveling to Spain, they want them to access, that's fine. But somebody arguably in Ukraine, you don't know anybody's gone to Ukraine, so you'll lock that area out. If somebody does go to Ukraine, as long as, for example, IT know that they're going, you can kind of allow that person in that location.
Okay, thanks, Gavin. I think it's a really good question, really good points made, because the security aspect of it is massive to be considered, isn't it? You know, you can see how you could contain that in the office, but when you're in multiple locations, whether that's home environments or across the world, it's such an important part. I'm really conscious of time, so I'm going to introduce again Yvonne from Jupiter Group, and yeah, we look forward to hearing how things have gone for you. So hand over to Yvonne, please. Thank you, Gavin.
Hi everybody, Untitled Chapter Group. We are a fresh produce company. We grow product globally, so our farms are in South Africa, Chile, Greece, Colombia, Morocco, various exotic parts of the world. So COVID-19 has proved a challenge for us in many different ways. But fortunately, some years ago, as we were on our path to becoming a global company, we actually started the investment in having an infrastructure to our IT that enabled us for our employees to work remotely at that point. So actually, whilst other businesses were highly challenged, we were already on that journey, and EBC were the partner that we did that with. And we don't have our own IT department. We actually look upon EBC as being our IT department. So we work really, really closely with them. And in fact, virtually somebody from our business is in touch with their business every day of the week. So you know, from that perspective, that's how we work. We chose to go to become a very technology-led business a number of years ago, because we could really start to see the world changing, particularly places like the Far East, where technology of the consumer was becoming all the more important. And I think what coronavirus has done is accelerate the UK and Europe into a path that perhaps some businesses weren't considering. So the way I'd sort of talk to you about IT and your infrastructure is a little bit like building a house. So when Gavin was talking about, you know, what kind of broadband feed you have in, your technology is pretty irrelevant if you don't have the correct feed of broadband into your areas of work. We found this out firsthand because our farms in South Africa are very remote, and so therefore it's really difficult for our colleagues when working there. So we're looking at additional technology solutions for them to bring them up to the same speed. But, you know, for a business, no matter how big or small you are, all of these decisions become important. And I think where IT was something that was almost a necessary evil, that the world is just going that way, actually I would encourage business owners and business leaders to start embracing how it can advance your business, because I think there's some great opportunities and great businesses that have marketed themselves by using technology as a solution. And I think COVID has accelerated that even further. So we're seeing brands that were high street brands move to online platforms. That's very much happening in the business world as well. So business to business, I can see becoming way more technology based. We made the brave decision about 3 years ago to become paperless. So we worked with EBC on finding a piece of software that was available at the time in helping us to go on that journey. And what it's provided is for us a different culture and a different way of working, because actually what it's enabled our employees to do is become more reactive, more knowledgeable, and have at their fingertips information that historically would have for them taken a while to find out. So it's definitely enhanced our productivity and our performance with customers. I think also what the technology has enabled our team to do as well is interact and collaborate in a better way. So where we were faced with the situation of for us, some of our staff we were able to actually, you know, it was almost seamless really in terms of how we would then transition our staff who weren't home-based to being home-based quite quickly. And that was culture driven because it was about education. So how can we educate them on how to use things? How can we educate them on what it is they need to know to survive with their piece of kit at home? But importantly, EBC played a pivotal role for us in hand-holding there. So actually, it wasn't just our education of our employees that became important. It was also how the help desk at EBC handled our employees in order to make sure they were online quickly, any issues they were having, whether it was to do with the system or not. And if I come back to the house analogy, if we've got good foundations in terms of a broadband and access to that speed, we then go on to the next stage is how are we going to protect that house? What's going to make the house warm and secure? And that comes into the security field. And as an international business we've transitioned from being a UK business to being a UK and European business to being now a global business. Security, I would say, is important no matter whether you're UK, European or international. And it's something that actually you can't see where your money's going. So it's really, really hard for a business owner to get their head around why security is important. But the first day you have a problem with your security, you'll understand why it would have been important to spend that money. And actually, you know, that's a bit like putting insulation into your house. You can't feel the benefit until the winter comes and you're suddenly warmer. And I think, you know, that's what I would liken it to, because actually it's really, really important to have the right security, because your employees aren't going to get it right all of the time. They're not going to get, you know, they're not going to necessarily reach out to the right people in the right way. So actually having the right security so you can protect yourself and protect your business, you know, is really, really important. One of the things we've done as a business, and we've done this sort of continually over the last certainly 2 years, but actually prior to that, perhaps less regularly, is continually invest in our infrastructure. So actually then, once we've got this house and it's on good foundations and it's nice and warm, actually you move in there, you want to get the decor right, you want to get the rooms functioning in the right way and feeling right. Actually, that's a continual process, just like you would manage your home at home, or your house at home, because actually it really starts to give you a feeling for, you know, what's out there. Software is changing all the time. Literally every day of the week there's something else you can add in addition. So even how we looked at the beginning in terms of our infrastructure is on a journey now to change, because we've changed as a business, we've changed with the type of people we work with, we've changed in the speed of which we work. So actually it's a continual improvement process. You know, and when I sit down with a team and we revise the next 5 years and what that might look like, the reality is we're looking at the next 1 or 2, and then we're going to be building to the next 3, 4, 5 after that. And because actually we don't know what's going to come out next, we don't know where that's going to go. But there are some things that can change that can benefit your company from a cost perspective as well. So taking the leap of faith actually down a technology-based route actually can bring great efficiencies to you. And as Sharon referred to, it might be you save on office space, but it also can mean that actually you're you know, you can save just in terms of understanding and detailing information of where your costs are going a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently, just by getting the right products into your business. So to be able to do that, you do need the right partner that actually gets into the nitty gritty and kind of understands the issue you're trying to put across. And, you know, I'm great at sort of, I'm the first to put my hand up and say, I'm not a technology kind of focused person. But then actually, when I look at what I do and how I use it and how I think about things, probably I am. I don't use the right terminology, that's for sure. But actually, what I have realised and what we've done at Jupiter is understand the value of technology. And actually, the way the world is going, it's a path you really need to go down. So for us, you know, it's a really important factor. It's something that we will continue to invest in, because it's not going away. And we're fortunate enough to see areas of the world where technology is way in advance of what we're even using here within the UK, and it's having huge impact not only to businesses but to consumers and the way they do things. And I think we're starting to see in parts of Europe a transition into that route, and I think it won't be long before those things start to come the UK's way as well. You know, and certainly, you know, there's amazing brands out there, Gymshark, which is just up the road in Solihull, you know, completely technology-based marketing, completely. So, you know, they're not using, their whole business is online, they're not using any sort of retail outlet. You know, life has changed really, and COVID really gave us a good insight into what the consumer is capable of and what they're able to access just from their own PC at home. And I think that's going to drive our agenda as business leaders moving forward, to make sure that we keep up with their expectations. COVID was long enough to form a habit, so it takes something like 90 days to form a habit. They were in lockdown for longer than that period. So there will be consumers that don't move away from the habits they've formed during COVID. And I think that's the same for businesses. So where actually in the past you thought, you know, actually, why do I need to spend the money on that? What benefit is it going to have? you've got to actually make it have a benefit for your business and use it in a way that can really drive change. You know, motivating your employees, communicating with your employees, all of those things that change because of technology, but they change for the better if you use them correctly. So my kind of coaching and guidance to you as business owners, business leaders, would be to jump on that journey and actually get out there and see what you can do for your business to make it think in a different way.
Thanks, Yvonne. That was really, really useful. And I really like your house analogy. And it's always one, isn't it, where I know in my house, and I don't know whether everyone's the same, I love spending the money on the finishing touches, but it is actually all the foundations and the insulation, as you say, that is the important parts to it, because without all that, what are the finishing touches? So thank you for that. Thanks for sharing that analogy with us. And also, I think you raised some really interesting points about the link between IT, and I guess it's always been there, but it's ever more prevalent now with the links to the other things you mentioned, such as culture and efficiencies, obviously productivity, security now. So it's almost as if the link of IT, it goes throughout the whole of the business issues and challenges, doesn't it? So I guess that from me, I've wrote down a load of notes already. There's just so much to continually think about, isn't there? I am just conscious of time, and I know Mark's put something in the chat that's really helpful, so thanks for that, Mark, because you've given us a bit more clarification on one of the security questions. Just wondering if we've got a few minutes left, if anybody's got any extra questions for Yvonne. Sometimes it's a lot to write in the chat if you've got a bigger question, so no hands up or hand signal. I've got the chat on now, but is that you waving, Alison? Yeah, Ali, yeah. Alison, another question for Yvonne.
It is, so I just better take it offline.
Okay.
We've got
I don't mind.
Joe Krellin, who is the Trade Commissioner for Latin America and the Caribbean, and we're doing a virtual meet her, if you like, and it's for agri-tech type companies, and I just wondered if you were interested in being included in that.
Well, definitely, let's hook up offline, and I'll have a look, and I'll just be honest about whether we work with specific products. So, but if I can assist, I do work with the DIT really closely, so I try and support them wherever I can.
Thank you.
Well, if there's any more agri companies on the call, then I'm sure that's open to everyone. And I was just thinking while you said that, actually, Ali, because there was something on one of your slides, Gavin, I'd be interested to take away with one of my team. So could we share the slides after as well? Is that possible? And maybe contact details. And then if anyone does have a follow-up question for Yvonne, if you don't mind as well, sharing contact details.
No, that's absolutely
get in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Well, if no one's got any further questions, then I think we're just about on time. So thank you very, very much again to Yvonne and Gavin for talking to us about, I mean, we just can't cover it in an hour, can we? About everything that there is to think of IT-wise. Thanks to everybody coming, obviously. Liv, thank you, Hayley, for hosting as well. And Adam, I can see you there, so thank you too. And see you all at another event soon. Hopefully not too long before we're in person, but who knows. Thanks everyone, and have a great rest of the day.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye everyone.